Welcome to a new episode of the Soccer and Fitness Show with your host and creator of the podcast, Shaun Spencer. Today is episode 51. So I had last week, I didn't record anything last week. I had a little bit of a break. But today's topic is an interesting one and one that I've been wanting to do for the past couple of weeks, to be perfectly honest. But it's lucky that I've sort of waited because the book I've been reading as kind of everything's mixed together, so I'm excited to sort of get into this one. Something that I've discussed right from the start of my coaching career. Oh, you can actually hear it. So I'm going to play in a second. I'm going to play a video clip. I'll explain a little bit more about the video clip in a second. For those that are sort of new to the podcast. Recently I've started recording the podcast, and that's going to go to the YouTube channel Coaching Board, which has been around for a couple of years, and I've just recently sort of got that back going again. But other than that, we are going to get straight into it. So today, as is tradition, I have the beer of the evening. It's Friday evening here in Houston, Texas, and I'm drinking Montucky Cold Snack. So if you're a regular to the podcast, you'll know that, that's probably the one I drink most of, mainly because it's cheap and it's at the local supermarket. Other news is we've decided that we are going to be leaving Houston on sort of mid-March, and we're heading over to Seattle. So excited about that. So we've got 5 weeks of recording here, and then we'll be over in Seattle. But I'll keep you posted with everything over there as it comes about. But other than that, sit back, relax. If you are having something similar to a Montucky, cheers. Those that are on YouTube, cheers. Also, just quickly about the YouTube, I think it's worked quite well. I use a green screen. I've had 2 soccer stadiums in the background. The first one was Morecambe FC. The second one was Blackpool FC. So I'm not sure what today's is going to be, but I'll have a little look and see if you can guess that. But anyway, without further ado, I will get into the topic and explain. It's about something that I found an interesting subject. Now, the subject is the difference between being an ex-professional soccer player and then transitioning into coaching versus somebody who hasn't played at the highest level. So with that can vary playing standards. So that could be somebody who has played at a good level but not necessarily top level, or it could be somebody that hasn't really played at any sort of level and then has transitioned into elite soccer. So what I found was interesting is there's evidence from both. There's ex-professional players that have moved into coaching and become very successful coaches, and there's also players that don't have there's coaches that also don't have an elite playing background that have become very successful. So one of the earlier ones, Arrigo Sacchi, we'll talk about him in a second. AC Milan sort of revolutionized Italian soccer. Never played to any standard. Recently, Jose Mourinho, never really played to any sort of great standard. Again, they've all played a little bit, but we're not talking professional top level players. The likes of Zinedine Zidane, obviously top player, transitioned into coaching. Pep Guardiola, same thing, played obviously at Barcelona, top coach. But recently I saw, it was actually on Twitter, and I'll put all the information of this down below, but the Twitter account is @Sterling_GA, and he posted something about head coach Francesco Farioli. So he is coaching in the Turkish Superliga for a team called, and again I apologise for the pronunciation on this, Alanyaspor. So I've seen this team before. I think they may have played in the UEFA Cup. I don't know a whole lot of information about them or the head coach, but he is like 32, so he's pretty young. I think he's only got like a UEFA B, but he's the head coach of this team, top flight in Turkey. And recently he sat down for an interview, discussing the difference, because he comes from a background of non-playing. So I'm just going to play that. It's 1 minute and 47 seconds. It's just direct from my phone, so hopefully like the microphone and everything picks it up and it works okay. Other than that, like I said previously, I'll put the information and links down in the podcast description, or if you're watching on YouTube, down in the description on YouTube, so you can go and see it firsthand. But here it is.
In two different examples. For sure, as you say, it's clear that the starting point is completely different, because who has the opportunity to be footballer in high level, of course can share with the players a lot of personal experiences, and to try to transfer, this kind of sport experience to the players, emotions and many other things. Of course, the approach that I need to use, and people like me that didn't have a big coaching career, what we can bring to the game and to the players and to the team is first of all our ideas, because at the end we are studying the game from a different perspective. So we are not, or we were not so inside, but we were always from one step inside. So at the end, I don't know what is better, what is worse, but it's just two different perspective and two different approach. And as always, what is important for one coach that was a football player to try to make a step inside to watch from a different perspective, and for the coaches that didn't have a big playing career, to try not to forget the player's perspective, so to get close to them in order to understand the fears, the emotions, and to try to connect also from that point of view, and to link and to connect these two aspects. So the ideas, the methodology, the study and the research with the reality of the daily work.
Elbette şimdi
Okay, so that's a piece of the interview, and like I said, the full interview is out there, and you can go and check that out for yourself. But what I wanted to take away from that is the sort of my thoughts on it as well. So I think there's no wrong or right way. I don't think necessarily being a great player makes you a great coach, and I also don't think not playing makes you a bad coach. So what you were saying in there is two different perspectives on it. So you've got the ex-professional player, your Zinedine Zidanes and these types of people, like Frank Lampard in the Premier League at the moment, Steven Gerrard, who understand what the players are going through, and they're able to share their experience of whatever part of their career they're at. So you take, say, a 17, 18-year-old youth player that's making the debut, like Frank Lampard and the Steven Gerrards of the world are able to share their experience and the mistakes that they may have made, and they can relate to the players on that level. Now, what they might not have is the years and years of technical ability of coaching. So, like my personal experience, like I've been coaching now since, like early 2000s, so 2002, 2003, I started coaching. And again, although I was playing at a decent level, it wasn't the same level as Frank Lampard or Gerrard. But what I learned was how to coach people from, different backgrounds, different cultures, different abilities, and you learn with that as well. You learn how to talk to them, how best to deliver the session. And then you've got the whole host of like your equipment and the spaces and the environments that you're in. Coaching in England was very different to when I coached in South Korea, very different than when I was coaching in America. So all this experience over years and years and years helps refine how you deliver a coaching session. And that's something that a player doesn't have. That's not to say that they haven't necessarily gone and done the qualifications and, they've learned from, they could have played under Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, for instance, and learned certain things from them. So I think it's the best way to look at it is to understand how each of them can help evolve the player and the team. So he was saying then that he was always like, he wasn't necessarily in the changing room growing up as a player, but he wasn't far away. He was just on the outside. And his job now is convincing players and showing players what he can bring that will help them evolve and help take the game forward. So I think there needs to be a sort of mix in my experience, which I'll go into in a second. But just looking at, if you haven't read this one, I've mentioned this before, it's Zonal Marking by Michael Cox, good book. And then this is on page 64. So it's talked about the Dutch system and stuff like that, and now it's moved on to the Italian system. But there's a paragraph where it's talking about Italian head coaches and managers and what they need to do to get qualified. So they go to a place, and again, I'm going to brutalize how you pronounce this. Coverciano, I'm going to say. Coverciano is the highest coaching certificate necessary to coach in Serie A, but entry requirements were strict with only 20 places per year. You needed to be an Italian citizen or have resided in the country for 2 years. You needed to have qualified from the second level of coaching course, and then you had to complete an assessment based upon your playing career. So you basically, what they're saying is you had to get a certain amount of points to get the highest qualification in Italy. So playing career would award you 35 points. Coaching career would get you 40 points. Academic career would only get you 5 points. So, and then with 20 points on offer, your performance in an interview, so you get interviewed, you might get 20 points. Playing and coaching careers were assessed according to an absurdly complicated point system that awarded 0.02, 0.04 and 0.06 points for club appearances in Serie C, B and A respectively, with bonus points available for winning the Serie A and playing internationally or appearing in the World Cup. The famous quote from Arrigo Sacchi, who never played football professionally, about how a jockey doesn't need to have been a horse, becomes more significant when you realise the extent to which the Italian coaching school was predisposed to favour former players. So the quote there, if you haven't heard it, from Arrigo Sacchi, he basically says, like, you don't have to You don't have to have been a horse to be a jockey. You can just be a jockey. It's a famous quote that's been around for years. But again, so the Italian coaching system was heavily loaded for ex-professional players to move into the coaching, and then they had more chance of making it as a top-level coach, certainly qualification-wise. Where Germany's very different. Germany, they basically go off if you're good enough and you've gone through the qualifications and you show a talent for coaching, that you can reach the highest part, and you see that with the Thomas Tuchels and the Klopps of the world, and I personally think that is the best way of going about it, because like what we just discussed, there's the Mourinhos who have never played, but then there's also the Pep Guardiola who has played, and they're both very, very good coaches, and you can't really argue with that. So yeah, that was the main thing what I wanted to talk about today. And my background, I played to like a decent level. I can hold my own, but again, was never like a Steven Gerrard or Lampard. And I think the playing background holds you back, certainly in terms of contacts and actually getting through the front door. But I also think I'd be better in terms of the experience, and the actual craft of coaching I think has been refined for over like two decades. So I think what needs to happen is similar to what was said in the interview with Francesco, is that there just needs to be an understanding of what both parties can bring, what the ex-pros can bring, and what the people who have studied coaching and understood the sport and have been analysing it and all this stuff and work together basically. And I think, like, again, just going back to like my sort of early years back at Blackpool, that was what was really good for me. I was working with Paul Ince, obviously Man United, Liverpool, Inter Milan in England. There was Alex Ray, who played in the Premier League for Sunderland, and then there was Tony Warner, played for Liverpool and Fulham as a goalkeeper, and I just learned how to interact with players, how to be around professional football players, and how to conduct yourself in that day-to-day life, and that's stuff that you just don't know when you're studying the game. But what I thought I brought was structure and knowledge of X's and O's. I knew how to set up the team. I knew how to set up like the practice, and how to order things and how to present things, and I think having both worlds together ultimately will sort of give you the best results in my opinion. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, because again, I've had friends who are sort of strongly against ex-pros, and they get annoyed at how they get preferential treatment, and they get the positions easier, which I understand and can be frustrating, but at the same time, they have come through the system. They have, they've been in the youth academies, they've played, they've had these experiences which are invaluable. But there also needs to be a balance of the coaching expertise as well. But yeah, that's it. Friday evening. We're on what time are we on now? 7:48 Friday evening. I wanted to get this podcast this little YouTube video done. Any questions, let me know. If you're listening solely on the podcast, like I said, I'm over on YouTube on the coaching board. I'm on Twitter as well, at the Spencer, capital T, capital S. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I will be back soon. Don't forget, if you can like, subscribe, much appreciated. Bye-bye.